Whatever function you lead in today's organization, the foundation under work as we know it is shifting fast. It's not just new tools, it's new operating models where people and AI agents share the load. Our panelists will discuss what the innovation really looks like in practice in the people space, the decision leaders make, the guardrails they set, and the measurable wins they've seen. We'll focus on lived examples of pragmatic innovation under real-world limitations to business results. Please welcome our panel, Lisa Stella, Nihar Shah, and Monica Pleasant.
Pick a box, any box.
So before we jump in, actually might be helpful to just do a really quick intro to roles beyond our names. Monica, if you want to start, and Nihar, you jump in so everyone knows why we're here.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Pleasant. I am currently the HR director at Medtronic, which is a medical device company. I work in the Irvine location. And I'm also the past president of the National Human Resources Association in Orange County.
Nice to see you all. My name is Nihar Shah. I'm a group vice president with DaVita. I help lead half of our HR functions across the country and globe. And it's great to be here. I didn't realize the great opportunity I'd be to be in a Vegas scene. So this is pretty cool lighting. This is awesome.
Great. So we're here talking about the future. And I think that for a lot of people function leaders, HR leaders, it maybe has felt like we've been living in the future for the past 5 years. The sudden shift to virtual work, the emphasis on well-being, and now advent of Gen AI. So it's created a lot of question and excitement maybe about what the role of the HR leader looks like now. So especially as we're thinking about how work in organizations is increasingly done by agents, by technology, as well as people, what does that mean for the role of the HR leader, and what does that mean for collaborating and getting things done? Nihar.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of emotions happening right now as people try to center themselves on where we're going. So I think I have two main themes for the group. One is that elevation of collaboration is moving at a whole new speed. And I think increasingly the way we do work as people and the way we do work through product is emerging together quickly. And so what's going to happen is that seat of the HR leader is now kind of shoulder to shoulder with the seat of a product or IT leader like we've never seen before. And that's an exciting time, and that means different ways of working and new opportunities. The second I was thinking about on my drive over today was the duality of the HR function and the responsibility that it carries. And that is, for a long time, the HR function can often live in a do-no-harm world. Meaning, if you think about the core things it has to deliver, people want to get paid. They want to make sure their benefits are solid. They want to make sure that the systems are working. And in that environment, if you get something wrong, it's actually a pretty starkly tough moment. At the same time, we need those same leaders, or at least their peers within the function, to be disrupting and innovating at a pace that we haven't seen before. And so the duality of living in the do no harm for things that they've been known for and the ability to fast forward into the future, I think creates a ton of opportunity, and we'll have to figure out how to traverse it together.
I think thinking about what's required of leaders and what they may need. Monica, we know you're doing some things over at Medtronic considering how leaders need to be able to engage not just with their people, but with agents, with technology. Can you tell us a little bit about that and anything else on the topic that might be interesting?
Yeah, so following what Nihar said, I mean, HR is now becoming an architect in terms of the design of the organization, of how humans and machines collaborate with one another and work together to execute the strategy of the business. And one of the things that I find, because companies are moving at just rapid speed, sometimes they're just going, and making decisions without really thinking through, does this align with our strategy, or how is this really going to benefit us? I find myself often having to be the conscience of the leaders, just helping them pause and recognize and making sure that the decisions that we're making are truly aligned with where the business wants to go. And sometimes I gotta take them through some exercises to help them have clarity on their own vision before they're telling people and leading people through that transformation. But working together, cross-functionally, like collaboration cross-functionally is critical, because this is a revolution of the workforce, another revolution. I mean, we've experienced one over and over and over again, but there's a lot of blind spots for all of us too, because it's so new. And so that's where that cross-functional collaboration is important more than ever, because we all have our different purviews on this, and we want to make sure that we're including everybody's input so that we're really moving forward as strategically and effectively as possible.
So all of this is new, as you said, and we know at least 80% of organizations are saying in this AI journey, we're early on, we're experimenting, we're just getting started. But one place where there's been a lot of swirling interests, it's kind of like a magnet, at least in the HR space, for the attention, is on talent acquisition, right? So it's an area that's been really important as, you know, the kind of hiring and turnover churn was happening during earlier on in the 2020s. And it's high volume, tons of people, lots of administrative burden, so just a lot of potential promise there for impact. I would love to hear about kind of what your organization or others are doing in this space, and just anything that you've seen on the trend.
Yeah. Well, to compete for talent, it's so important that we have an excellent candidate experience, because if people are brand champions saying, I had a great experience interviewing or being considered for a position at Medtronic, then that word will spread and attract other great talent to our organization. So we're excited because there's a lot of great recruiting tools and talent acquisition tools out there that exist, and we are certainly doing RFPs and implementing the ones that we feel, again, align with our strategy and help us become the version of ourselves that we want to be. And one of the ones that I'm excited about, many of you might be familiar with it already, which is Paradox. Maybe I should be getting a bonus for mentioning their name, I don't know. But
We're a current customer.
but they have saved us thousands of hours in administrative burden in terms of communicating with candidates, scheduling interviews with candidates. Just think about all the resources that would go into that administrative work. Well, now we have an AI tool that does all of that for us, and it's been fantastic.
And Nihar, you've got some things, big things happening over at DaVita in the talent acquisition space also.
Yeah, it's one of the many areas where you're changing the engine as you fly, and so you've got to figure out how to continue to hire people and figure out how to disrupt yourselves. And so for a long time, we would continue to go down a route. We would use things like pre-hire assessments to get a better feel for candidates. To give you a sense of scale, we have nearly 500,000 applicants for approximately, let's call it 10,000 hires a year. And so at that level of scale, it is challenging to be able to vet every candidate as deeply as you wish you maybe could. And so one of the things that we're doing in parallel with some curiosity is this idea of kind of a new selection loop. And so we have the ability to look at all the data from the people we hire, assess those who stay, those who leave, make sure a minimum bar of performance is met, and then try to build a smart enough algorithm or a predictive model to the features and traits of someone that is more likely to come in and thrive at DaVita. We're linking that data into a startup who we think is at the forefront of their work on the recruiting AI experience. There are many organizations who are taking the leap into it. What that will allow us to do is, as a candidate expresses interest, within minutes, they'll be reached out to by the AI recruiting agent. They'll ask for a time to schedule an appointment. There's many different profiles of the type of bot that you can have this interview with, and then that information will be shared essentially with the first line in the interview process. And so, will there be risk? Yes. Are there many things to work out? Yes. And it gives us a chance to go find out if we can work differentially and move the ball forward. And some of that is a little bit of test and learn and go, and then iterate as we learn.
One other thing I'd like to add, because there's probably like an elephant in the room question of like the recruiting team, like how does that impact the recruiting team? And some in the press we're hearing stories here and there of shrinkages in organizations because of AI coming in. But I can say at Medtronic that we are looking at ways of either evolving the role so that the recruiters can be more strategic partners, talent partners with leaders. So it's just reshaping how they do their work. But It also is very helpful in redeploying people into other roles where they have skill sets, so that we can position them to add value in the organization in other areas.
Yeah, I know it's come up during the day, but I think the ability to figure out what's uniquely human that you want those individuals to do and what does top of license look like. And so the ability to work through those new sets of skills and competencies so you can get the most out of that team has the most to grow, I think is phenomenal. We're on that same journey.
I was going to surprise you with a surprise question, but now this is such a good segue into what we're going to talk about next that I'm going to hold on my surprise question, and we'll see if we get there. So you're talking about the evolution of roles and the evolution of work, which I know we've talked about in various ways today. So the significance of skills and how that can be used as a foundation for rethinking what work looks like now for different individuals. So this is maybe one of the biggest trends that we're seeing in the people space at this point. And it would maybe be interesting to hear about what does that look like in practice? How is it starting to take shape? So what are some of either the things that you're doing in the area of redesigning work, redesigning roles, or that you think may be coming very soon, specifically for your organization?
Well, for us, I mean, again, it starts with having clarity on how we want to operate, what we want to do, what is our strategic priority that we want to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years. Like, we got to get very clear on that. And then with that, we go through strategic workforce planning conversations with our leaders of what is our current state in terms of our talent and our capabilities, where do we need to be, and then getting clear on what is that gap, and then how do we close that gap to get to where we want to go. And I love the strategic workforce planning model of the B's, like the buy, the bot, the boost, the build. So we think about all of those things of who are we going to advance into other roles in the organization? Who do we need to upskill in the organization? If there are gaps in our current state and we're not able to upskill, who are we going to acquire into our organization? So those are the types of questions that we're asking ourselves to get crystal clear on our talent strategy of how we close the gap to where we want to go. And then that's leading to the execution and the planning of what roles need to be evolved and so forth.
Yeah, I love that. So I think a couple things that I can relate to. One is you're going to have to continue to define what the true north is. And so we start with our pursuit and our unwavering pursuit of a healthier tomorrow at DaVita. And I think one of the things we need to think about is not what life looks like 3 months from now, 6 months from now, but the world is moving fast enough that what can we think about our patient care model? How do we take care of our patients in the communities we serve in 3 years, 5 years? It's going to take some time to build, and you'd hate to build something that's essentially out of the trend before you even get there. I'm going to build on the things you said to make additive, so I'm going to say yes and say on the back end, one thing I think is an important conversation is how do you get pragmatic? So in our roles, it will be important to think conceptually and strategically about where we're going, and there's always going to be pressure to put points on the board now. And so one of the questions will be, how do we continue to make the movement of this forward? So how, if you're going to build skills, the manager of tomorrow looks different. That manager is going to have a workforce composed of humans and technology. So what does it look like to leverage? What does it look like to have that AI assistant at a manager level? For teammates or employees, the importance of being able to help them self-develop and own has always been a part of the spirit, but there's so many more tools that are available to us. As you all may know, the universities are looking at altering the way they educate in today's society. When I grew up in school, it's a fairly flat curriculum. You could follow the syllabus, and we were going to go along in order, all as one. Now you're seeing the variability of how we learn. So someone who's able to take on a course faster gets a different experience than someone who might need a little bit more foundational skill. The ability to put an entire curriculum into a learning module that you can then supplement a core curriculum with Learn As You Go in eTutor, it's exciting and it's breaking down barriers that some people may not have access to. If we can take someone who's starting their career on the front line and help them to become a nurse, help them to become a clinic leader, help them to become a leader across our organization, what a powerful moment for all.
So here's my new surprise question. So thinking about all the possibilities that technology is opening up. If we go back to the people side of this whole equation, where HR started, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of worry, like you mentioned, around where some of this can lead. What do you think the answer is to helping organizations bring their people along in the journey with them? How do we get them out of that fear place?
For me, it starts with vision. Again, the leaders have to be clear on the vision, and they have to be able to communicate it in a motivating way. And ultimately, that's about transparency. Leaders have to be transparent about where we want to go, where we see ourselves, how we want to elevate how we operate so that we can serve the customer needs. It's all about communicating that vision and being transparent about where we're going. And the more we're transparent, then that'll settle people's nerves, because if we don't communicate it, then they're going to start assuming all of these things that are not correct. They'll start hearing different narratives in the organization and believe it, and it's just going to spiral. And so the more that we can settle their nerves with the truth of this is where we see that we are headed as an organization and we want you to be a part of it, is we're going to do this together, that will help with the transition and bring them along.
I think part of it is you can just acknowledge there's going to be some ambiguity as we go forward. And so in that moment of ambiguity, I would say just make sure the things you believe most continue to be true. So many of us, all of us, I hope, are value-based organizations with a deep belief on what is right and what is your core values to drive. Those continue to be true in any operating environment, so make sure you're living those values. The ability to open up and be even more inclusive about where good ideas come from. I mean, what an amazing time to work. And it's unclear where the best idea is going to come from because we're all on new territory. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think the acknowledgement that we're going to test and try, we're going to pivot and learn, is going to be part of that journey. And so there's going to be sprinkled opportunities to try to do that. And you're going to adjust as you go. And likely what we see a year from now will be different than what we saw today. And that will probably be true forevermore.
So final question, in this time of many, many exciting ideas, so many opportunities, there is a quote that I may get wrong that says, the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. So how do you find a way to prioritize? How do you as an organization sift through all these ideas and decide what to do now or next or never?
Yeah, great question. And I would say, first of all, we don't do it alone or as an individual. Again, it goes back to we have to do it collectively as a team to make these decisions. And so, again, we got to get clear. What is our strategy? What are we trying to achieve? That's our North Star. And then from there, we have work councils, teams that will, they'll gather ideas that the organization has in terms of things that we should try and experiment with or implement or pilot, and we put that list together and we do a priority matrix on that of like which one is a heavy lift, which one requires more resources. We look through all those different data points to then try and narrow down like the top 3 things that we're going to focus on for the next year and implement.
Nihar, you do something similar at DaVita?
Yeah, so I think when we started the journey of this current disruptive period, one of the things we did is we set up a structure and a team to go help us build a bunch of ideas. I think the good news is we got a bunch of ideas. And the hard part about that bunch of ideas is now you have hundreds of possibilities. And some of them are fairly unknown, exactly what the value looks like, exactly what you can promise on the back end. And so we were almost overloaded with possibility. So the twist on that plan has come recently, and I think it's been fun. It's a little game we like to call Shark Tank. I think many of you may be aware of it. But the concept was for each team to bring forth their, we called in this case, 3 favorite ideas. And it put pressure appropriately on each team to think about what they're most excited about, where the impact was, how they were going to get there. And then that allowed this conversation around prioritization. From that, we've decided on a top 10 to go out first with the most amount of resourcing, the most amount of governance, and then we have tiers, 2, 3, and 4, because those other ideas can still be additive. I think one of the things we'll have to stay true to is your list can't be stagnant. And so the ability to go after the 10, see what you pursue, what you got right, what you got wrong, what you start, stop, and continue, all will be part of that flavor. just as long as the same idea isn't sitting there for years without enough of an end game. And like I started with earlier, it's okay, right? Even in HR, if some of these fail. This is a different space where if you're probably not failing, you're probably not challenging and pushing. And that'll be part of how we think about it going forward.
Great. Well, has been fun to think about how some of these ideas of the future can take shape in the limitations of the current reality, and seeing how you're getting these ideas going in practice on the ground. Thank you both for joining
Thank you
today.
for having us.
And thank you for your awesome facilitation. Lisa, Stella, everybody.
Yes, awesome.